Two giraffes to Paris. But what did giraffes or our star or rhino star here, what did they cost for circuses like Barnum and Bailey? First of all, where did they come from? These animals normally were catched in the wild. For the rhino and the giraffes, they came from Eastern Africa and came from a trader. His name was Josef Menges. Josef Menges had lived in Limburg an der Lahn, and he was doing research in Africa, and to financiate his travels, his journeys, he traded with animals that were first of all catched in nature. Later on, he also traded animals within the zoo circuit. He had a large network, and this was very interesting. And we speak about the time between 1880 and 1910. So, but where did we know how much these giraffes for Barnum and Bailey had cost? 1901. Very simple. I was lucky to find papers of his company and of him going and trading animals, for example, to Barnum and Bailey. This is all written down, and it's very interesting because we still have this old paperwork that to find and to also debunk some myths that are currently grazing around that were simply false when you read the papers, and when you know a little bit more background about all the circus life and all the other things. And there will come much more videos about this. First of all, I want to show you a back side. This is the front side of a telegram, 1901. There are several ones going to Barnum and Bailey, to Paris, and also going back and to adjust prices, and even how to handle the giraffes, and if the accommodation for the giraffes is finished, and if the heating is correct, and some stuff like this. And on the back side of this telegram, here, we have a handwritten notice, and this is how two giraffes to Paris costed, and what the Barnum and Bailey had to pay to Josef Menges for these animals. Menges did not catch animals, brought them to Europe and sold them here. Menges just worked, the people ordered or told him what they need, and then he looked for the animals in East Africa. Menges went over, and he did also the trade with the animals to financiate his journeys, and he was also measuring the landscapes and so on, and worked for Pertes in Gotha, and they were making maps, worldwide maps, and this was an area, Eastern Africa, where there were not so much information, so Pertes needed the information from Josef Menges, what they cooperated together. And there's much more going on, but there will be a lot more videos about this. So, on this year, two giraffes costed 1901 for Barnum and Bailey 30,000 marks. And together with an elephant, when they purchased an elephant, not the elephant alone, but just when they purchased the giraffes, then they would get the elephant for 5,000 mark. And then he wrote under it, this year, the rhino, our star here, Menges offered for 8,000 mark. 8,000 mark, what does this mean in the value, the currency back then, 1901? A normal worker, or the random worker back then, had an income per year from 1,814 mark. So the normal worker should work 10 years of his life to be able to pay a rhino, the Sumatra rhino, like this here, like our star. And not to mention the giraffes that were right out of order. It was a family, or it was a personal lifetime work to be able to financiate a giraffe, just potentially. It's a little bit crazy, but the links, I put the links down in the description where I found the data for it. And then on the back, it's all these letters are going between these two parties, when they could meet and when they could look for the giraffes, and if the heating system in Paris is finished, that the accommodation for the giraffes is perfect. So then I have another letter that's much more beautiful than the telegram, and I simply read it just for showing you the correspondence, how it was back then. So, my dear Menges, on my return this morning, I submitted the question of the giraffes and the elephants to Mr. Bailey. He was anxious as myself to purchase the elephants, but after due consideration, we found we could not possibly find room for the same or arrange for their suitable care. He has therefore wired you this day as follows. Will take as agreed and give 30,000 marks for the 2 giraffes, male and female, delivered in sound, healthy, perfect condition in the Galerie des Machines, Paris, France, on November 19th to 27th, 1901. Regret, cannot find room to carry or care for elephant. Feel disappointed, as I would like to have had it. Have written. Trust that we shall meet each other in Paris, when we can talk over the purchase of other animals which you may be able to obtain for us in the time for the next season. Yours truly, Barnum and Bailey Ltd, GOO Star Director. So that's it. So very interesting. And how did they do it back then? Menges were not just catching animals and brought them to Europe and then sell them, but he would normally get a notice from the zoos or also the circuses what they needed, and then he was going over and was looking for the animals that he had normally no stock. And how did he make it? Back then, we just had trains and we had just ships. So he went over from Limburg an der Lahn, where he lived. He went to Vienna. From Vienna, via train to Trieste. From Trieste, he went to Aden in Yemen. And then he went to Berbera in Somaliland. So this is also the route most of the animals came back from, and they were normally sent over to not to his home, but to Frankfurt Zoo, where they had the location to look for the animals, and there they looked for them, and if they were in good condition and healthy, and later on the delivery to these other zoos and also to other circuses and locations were managed, even to New York or to Moscow and whatever. It's absolutely fantastic. And sometimes Menges even went with his animals to deliver them to Moscow, for example. We have letters from this. And yeah, that's maybe interesting, because also later in his life, when the stock of animals had grown in the European zoos, he also traded with animals or tried to find a new home for animals that were breeded and were not just catched in the wild landscape. So it's maybe very interesting what's coming, and there's plenty more room for very interesting videos that maybe could not be directer than from what he has written directly back in 1899 and to 1901. It's really crazy that these paperwork still exists, and so we can also debunk some myths from that were spread around by people who try to know it better. Let all these old guys speak for themselves. It's very interesting, and yes, but there will be more. Bye.